Thank you, Justin. Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Particular thanks to ACBC for allowing us an opportunity to give you an update today on Australia's operational model, our focus for trade, investment and education, and in particular, our focus for activities in 2012 in the China market. Firstly, I'll take a few minutes to talk to you about Austrade's operating model. We undertook a very significant review over the last 18 months to identify where we, as the federal government's trade and investment promotion agency, can best add value to the Australian economy. How can we most significantly support Australian exporters? How can we be most effective in attracting productive foreign direct investment? And how can we support Australia's education sector? Austrade is the federal government's international trade and investment promotion agency. Our role is to advance Australia's international trade and investment and education interests, and we're here to help Australian businesses be more successful overseas. There are a range of ways that we do that. Most directly, we work with Australian businesses, helping them access new markets. We give them market insight. We help them understand how to transact in foreign jurisdictions. We also administer the Export Market Development Grant Scheme, which is a significant program for SMEs in Australia and assists them enormously as they look to expand their businesses internationally. Other areas of work for Austrade are attracting productive foreign direct investment into Australia, looking at those areas where we might be able to increase Australian capability, employ new staff in Australia, or attract IP into this country. Other services that we provide include advice to the Australian government and a range of consular services offshore. So there may be locations where if someone loses their passport, it's likely to be someone from Austrade that helps out with that. The final area that I'll talk about is in regards to building Brand Australia. Austrade is the lead agency for helping promote Brand Australia overseas, and hopefully if the technology works today, you'll see a couple of clips of how we're doing that, most broadly with Australia Unlimited, and then specifically in the education sector with our sub-brand Future Unlimited. As part of our review, we look to see how best can we use the resources that we have globally, and how do we understand and implement most effectively those resources offshore to assist Australian businesses. And what we've done is identified 3 ways of looking at key markets Austrade operates in. We have East Asia growth markets, of which China is part. We have growth in emerging markets, which includes areas like Sub-Saharan Africa, the Middle East, Latin America. And we have established markets. In all of those markets, we provide support to the education sector. All of those markets are often significant for inbound student recruitment. But in those markets, we identify that the government adds most value in different ways in different markets. So in East Asia growth markets and growth in emerging markets, there are significant resources there to help exporters. Those markets may be challenging for a range of cultural reasons, language reasons, or market opacity reasons. And for Austrade, the most significant value we can add is assisting businesses understand and identify opportunities and then transact on those opportunities in those markets. For established markets, Western Europe, North America, to some degree Japan, we see that there is an excess of capital. We also see that there are a range of other service providers in those markets who can assist Australian exporters. So our focus may be in those markets more directed towards attracting productive direct investment from those markets. We will still assist exporters, but the predominance of our service will be looking at bringing investment from those markets into Australia. In terms of our service offerings and our key operating model, outlined on this slide are the main things that we're focusing on and the main outcomes from that fairly significant review. And you'll be able to read through those quicker than I'll talk through them. So really, I'll just make a couple of comments for you. Firstly, we want to focus on where we add most value. We are your tax dollars at work, and we want to make sure that we're not competing with other service providers who are as well placed or better placed than we are to deliver services. So for us, it is looking at those locations and those services that are unique in terms of Austrade's value add. And for us, That's identifying market opportunities, it's closing market gaps. It may be also identifying opportunities offshore and communicating those back into Australia. So for us, that may mean having our staff identify opportunities in China, in agribusiness, in ICT, in financial services, and communicating those back to export-ready companies here in Australia who are able to meet those needs. Finally, in terms of the key drivers for us out of the review, it's looking at how best do we share our information and knowledge. How do we make sure that the people on the ground who are working for us are able to assist Australian exporters, able to provide their market insights most readily? And very clearly, we will look to use technology to assist us. So in all likelihood, you will see far more information available online from Austrade in the future. The key service offerings we have are around trade, investment and education. Very importantly though, Austrade also has the lead role in delivering the Australia Unlimited and Brand Australia Offshore. And if technology works, and Beth can quickly help me with the video, this is a clip that we are running in consulates around the world to help change the conversation and perceptions of Australia offshore. We are not just a mine and a beach. There is a whole range of innovative service providers and firms in Australia, and this short 2-minute clip will give you a bit of a feel for how we're trying to promote that offshore. So as I said, part of our role is significantly to change the way people think about Australia. As I said, it's not just a mine and a beach. We're looking at people to invest into areas like research and development, to see us as a very unique and valuable location for education around the world. Outlined in the next couple of the slides that I'll talk through are just briefly some of the services we offer in terms of trade, investment and education. As you can see, and as I've already outlined very briefly, a lot of the work that we do with exporters is helping them understand opportunities in market and facilitate the transactions. It's introducing them to the buyers of their products and services, helping them understand how to operate in markets where cultural language might be a challenge. It's also working, very importantly, to bring opportunities back to the Australian business community. So it's not just working with firms to help them go out, it's looking at opportunities offshore and bringing those back to Australia. And that leads into our work for investment. Everyone knows that we have significant natural resources here. So the role for Austrade is to ensure that we start the discussion around other areas of capability in Australia. How do we work to profile our research and development capability? How do we work to profile opportunities in clean energy, in financial services and the like? That's what our staff are focused on offshore. Again, it is looking to see where there is a market gap, where there may be gaps in knowledge of investors offshore, profiling opportunities here in Australia and raising Australia's awareness, Australia's profile globally in terms of an attractive investment destination. The final area for us, the third service offering, is in terms of education. We are now the lead agency for promoting Australian education internationally. That's not just student recruitment, it's also around profiling Australian research capability. It may be assisting Australian institutions in forming collaborative research with other institutions offshore. So we're looking at ways of supporting the international education sector, and we still need to remember it is our third largest export and a very, very significant services export. For those of you who may not have come across Austrade in China, the next slides just talk briefly about who we are and what we're doing in that market. As you can see, we have a very significant presence outside of the major cities in China. We have 14 offices in Greater China, 12 of those are in mainland China. There are 93 staff in our team in China, and the vast majority of those are locally engaged. So they're drawn from the local business community with the language, cultural and business skills that are needed to help Australian businesses be successful in the China market. Our focus very clearly is also, as I said, to move into second and third tier cities, many of which are, as we've heard earlier today, cities of 10, 20 or 30 million people, so presenting an enormous range of opportunities for Australia and Australian businesses. The next couple of slides just talk through some of the stats which you've already heard, so I'll move through these very quickly. You can see we are a very significant trading partner with China, and here are just some of the stats in terms of exports to China and their growth over the last 2 years. The next slide covers where we sit in terms of imports for China. So again, we're in the top 10 there, a very significant source of product for China. The following slides just talk about, at a very high level, some of the key issues that are driving where we see opportunities, where we see scope for Australian product and service in the China market over the coming years, and therefore where our teams will be focusing. None of these dot points should surprise anyone in terms of what we've identified, where we see challenges China faces, and therefore opportunities for Australia to supply. Social trends are also very significant, as well as economic trends, and particularly in terms of the movement of people, and as we've already heard, the construction that will result as new cities are developed and people move from the country to major economic centres in China. There are a range of opportunities that presents for Australian businesses. Also, we see the use of social media. There are now 500 million Chinese people who have internet access. There are a range of opportunities, clearly, that spin out of that for Australians that have capability in those sectors. And as we all know, there is a very entrepreneurial spirit in China, and the rise of private businesses and the services associated with that, again, for us as a government organisation profiling Australian capability, that's something that we're trying to tap into and to profile Australian expertise around. Again, some stats just to give you some quick feels for some of the changes that have occurred in those 5-year periods and what that might mean. These are where we're focusing. Our areas of priority by investment and also for export in 2012 in China. And also our regional focus. It's taking it out of Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Hong Kong. It's moving to those second-tier cities and to the west. In terms of investment focus, we're moving beyond resources. We're looking at infrastructure, tourism infrastructure, investment into clean energy and R&D. In terms of sectoral focus, really anywhere that we see Australian capability to supply into China, we will have staff on the ground with expertise across those sectors and are very keen to engage with Australian business here and in China around the opportunities that we see there. Just a snapshot of some of the upcoming trade missions that we'll be running this year, and these are just some that I pulled off the website yesterday. There will be a whole range of other activities that we will undertake, but this will give you a feel for the types of ways that we take trade missions in particular into China and what's coming up in the next couple of months. Finally, it goes without saying that Austrade works very closely with our colleagues in the Department of Foreign Affairs and here in New South Wales very closely with the New South Wales Government. Just yesterday, the City of Sydney hosted a very senior delegation from Shanghai looking at connections between Sydney and Shanghai as both financial services centres. And obviously the Department of Foreign Affairs and Austrade will be running a very significant series of both business and also cultural diplomacy activities across the coming year to celebrate these 40 years of diplomatic relationships. We look forward to keeping in touch with you all. Thank you very much, and I look forward to the rest of the sessions today.